cactus and succulent growers, I'm Lynn and welcome to Desert Plants of Avalon in the north of Ireland. And in today's video I'm going to be repotting my Quiabentia cactus, or Quiabentia cactus, not 100% sure how to pronounce it, and sharing a few little tips in this video. Now here is the Quiabentia zehntneri. I think that's how you pronounce it. Apologies if it's not how it's meant to be pronounced. Quiabentia zehntneri, and I just show you because even after years of growing these plants, I still don't know how to pronounce it. So that's the name there. And this particular cactus is quite a unique one because there's only one genus of the Quiabentia. And it is sort of often wrongly put under the category of either Cylindropuntia, Cylindropuntia, and Puntia, but it's actually its own genus. It is loosely related to a Puntia, and also sort of loosely related to the Preskyopsis cacti as well. It's one of the leafy cacti. This is the only leaf that is on this, which is going to be pulled off now. During the spring and summer, when it comes into active growth, this wacky cactus will grow lots of little green leaves like this. And during the winter months, when it's kept dry, it will drop all of its leaves and resemble more like a Cylindropuntia. Now, obviously, it must be part of the Puntiaceae family group anyway, because of its resemblance. And yes, it does have glochids as well. So when I'm going to be repotting this, I'm going to be protecting my hands with a pot upside down so I don't have to touch it, and it is sort of quite lethal, like a lot of the Cylindropuntia cacti. It does resemble a little bit like a cholla, but it's nowhere near as lethal, and it's probably one that's not blessed with looks either. Believe it or not, when this comes back into life again, once I start watering this in the spring, it firms up and it fattens up and it grows lots of leaves. So it's really lovely. So if you love the Opuntia type of family, then this is one that, although it's not strictly an Opuntia, it is fall loosely into that group. So it's quite unique. And as I say, there's only one genus of this, very special. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about this cactus. I have done a complete information and care video on the Quiabentia cacti, and I did a whole list of videos called the Leafy Cactus series, where I talk about Preskyopsis, and this Quiabentia as well. So if you want a more in-depth video on the care and also about this cactus, then do watch that video after this one. If you just want to know more about this rather rare type of cactus, it's not common in collections, then link to that video will be up above, and do go and watch it after this video. So I'm just going to talk roughly about this type of cactus. As I mentioned, it's a leafy one and one of its own genus. It loves plenty of sunshine, so a bright sunny position in the spring and summer really loves it. Very, very similar care to a Puntia. I treat it more or less the same, except it's not cold hardy. It is one that does need winter warmth. So it's one I overwinter here in my grow room, and it keep it at a minimum of 10 Celsius, 50°F, because it can get damaged and even can die in cold temperatures. It doesn't take any type of frost at all. I do, however, don't water it during the winter. I keep it dry from sort of mid-September up until April, and that's when it loses the majority, if not all, of its leaves and comes back again once it's been watered again in active growth. And a very well draining cactus soil, exactly like a Puntia. I use a mix of 3 equal parts of loam, grit and sand, and it likes to be obviously has to be the soil has to dry out completely well before you water again. So from spring and summer I would water this once every time the soil has totally dried out and no water at all given over the winter months. Give a bit of fertilising, usually about once a month, with a bit of tomato feed. I haven't had flowers on this yet, but hopefully one day. But as I say, for more information, do go ahead and watch the video I've made especially on this cactus. As I say, it'll be linked to that will be up above. So now to get repotting, I'm going to show you what soil mix I've made now. Now I've made a well-draining soil mix of loam, pumice and grit. I haven't used sand this time, and that's because the type of John Innes I'm using is actually more sandier than normal. I normally use the Clover brand, but I couldn't get it this time, so I've used another brand. I think it's Levington's I've used here, but it's quite sandy. So I just, when I'm making cactus soil, I like to sort of see how it feels and I know what to add to it. Most important thing is that you use a well-draining soil and the soil is loose in the hand, so there's no clumping there. And dry soil, it doesn't have to be bone dry soil as long as it's not wet soil. And giving all this a good mix around. And I always like to use pumice. If I don't have pumice, I can use perlite, but I just prefer pumice because it seems to, perlite has a habit of rising up to the top of the surface of the pots over time. But if you repot your cacti every couple of years or so, it's not such a problem. But pumice, grit and loam, John Innes number 2. Now, before I decide what type of size pot I'm going to get, I'm going to have a look at the root system. I'm going to try and remove some of this old soil as well on here. So I'm going to get that out first. And I've got this pot here just to handle these. It's not an Opuntia strictly, but the Opuntia type of cacti. This is very, very spiny. And I don't find gloves. Gloves are hopeless. And sometimes even sheets of newspaper and that can be difficult. I can turn this onto its side, so I may not have to handle this too much anyway. So this is what I'm going to be doing here. So we're just going to be squeezing the pot to get it out. Wow, yep, very root bound, as you can see there. Desperate for a repot. And great there. So, yep, no problem there. Always good to check over the root system to check that there isn't any signs of beasts such as mealybugs, root mealybugs and vine weevils. And there's no problem there at all. And I'm actually going to be careful with this. Although it's quite root bound, as you can see, the roots are all coming through there. It's not overly compact, and I just prefer to pot up and be careful with this. I'm just going to put some soil in, put the soil around, and these type of cacti as well, a bit like the normal types of Opuntia varieties. No problem getting climatised into the new pot. And this I just want to mention here, any sort of white particles, these, like a lot of these type of Opuntia type of cacti, always coming down with mealybugs, so I dust with diatomaceae surf. So any of this white powder you see in the joins there, it's not mealybugs, it's actually diatomaceae surf that I sprinkle on this regularly to keep mealybugs away. So that's good. So now I'm going to choose the next size pot. Now I didn't have a pot a bit bigger. I've only got this one, which obviously is way too big. If I was to pot this in and put that much soil in and then put it in, it's going to be too much soil. But as it's quite a tallish growing cactus, and I think it's going to love a bit of extra root space anyway, I'm just going to pot a bit of soil at the bottom there and just pot it up to there and leave this bit free, so it's not going to be potted up in too much soil. And that's the thing when you're potting up cacti, if you pot them up in a much larger pot and I was to fill this up completely to the top of soil in there, then when you go to water and it doesn't dry out fast enough, you can get things like root rot. No problem. I've only really got this size pot, so I'm going to just put a bit of soil at the bottom, put this in and then leave it quite free at the top. And you'll see what I mean. And this is what you can do if you don't have a pot that is just a bit bigger. So now I'm going to start filling this pot up. So there we go. I've just filled that up. Just a small amount of soil, about 2 inches at the bottom there. So as I say, it's not going to be a problem putting it into this bigger pot, as long as I don't have tons of soil all around it. Whoops. Treading on everything here. And I might be able to very carefully lift this without having to touch it too much. So I'm just going to pull this back. And then pop this into here. Gosh, I can't believe I've actually been able to do this without handling, without touching this spiny beast. Now this is where these pots come in handy to handle it. So I can hold that like that. And just show you as well, I have only put it in so far down, so I'm not going to be putting too much soil around it. This is only because I don't have a pot really to the next size up with this. And then put all the soil all around the sides. There we go, and that's staying on its own there. So hopefully I can just take this camera a little bit closer so you can see a little bit more. We're putting the soil into the side of the pot here. This is so going to appreciate this repot. And I use this little spoon then to push it around. Amazing, I've not had to handle this plant at all. Oh my gosh. This is a biter. As I say, it's not a common cactus in collections. It's quite a rarity. And this is one that I got from Cacti in Hague. I just show you here. That was before the Brexit rules came in place with sending plants to the UK. It was much easier to buy plants from Europe a few years ago. And I'm so glad I bought the plants I did when I had the chance. I don't know how you other guys in the UK are finding it now. If you want to buy plants abroad, it's a nightmare. But anyway, I've got this plant now, so happy days. And I'm not going to go, as I mentioned, too high up. Normally when I repot cacti, I'd probably bring it up to the top there, but because I mentioned the pot is bigger than ideal for it, I've only put a couple of inches at the bottom, and then that's as far as I'm going at the top here. So it's not going to be, the root system's not going to be covered in way too much soil. Happy days. Just give it a bit of a tap so the soil goes all down the sides. It around. There we go. One happy Quiabentia. Yay! Put the little label in. And when I repot cacti, I don't water anyway for the first 10 days to 2 weeks, even if I'm repotting in the middle of summer. And this cactus, I'm going to start watering it anyway from the April time. And I just gives it chance now to settle in. But whenever I repot cacti, I always like to leave it a couple of weeks before I water them, even when I'm doing it in summer, just to let the roots settle. So happy days. That's one happy Quiabentia.
So I hope you enjoyed watching, everybody, and for lots more tips and tricks, don't forget to subscribe. Also check me out on Insta, Twitter and Facebook at Desert Plants of Avalon. Do give me a follow and check out my website, desertplantsofavalon.com. I want to wish you all an amazing cactus powered day.